Welcome back to another episode of War in Cali. In this episode, I'm going to talk about Kingpin Darryl Little D Reed. Little D would be born around 1968 range and would grow up in East Oakland, California. Little D would grow up in a two-parent, hard-working home, but growing up in East Oakland was always a tough environment. He grew up in the 6ix9ine Village housing projects, one of the most known and crime-riddled areas in Oakland. Growing up, Little D would see a lot, and one of the main things he seen was Kingpin Felix Mitchell running the projects he lived in. This exposed him to a lot early. Little D had an early connection to Felix Mitchell and the 6ix9ine mob gang, off his auntie having a baby, which is his first cousin with Felix Mitchell. Growing up, Little D would spend a lot of time with his little cousin, and this helped make him spend a lot of time with his cousin's dad, Felix Mitchell. Little D started to experience the early lifestyle of a Kingpin being with Felix. That's being inside luxury cars like Rolls Royces, top-of-the-line clothes and shoes, and the respect of the association of the 6ix9ine mob. Little D's parents tried to provide for him and shelter him the best that they could and keep him away from that type of lifestyle, but it wouldn't work. It was almost impossible with everybody he knew and some of his uncles being a part of the 6ix9ine mob. Little D would start off slow in the lifestyle, with running errands for the 6ix9ine mob, like going to the store and even holding straps for them. Because of his young age, police wouldn't search him. At age 14, Little D started selling, but he had a learning curve. Getting played by one of his OGs, he had to learn more about the game, which he did. He ended up making his own small crew of homies his age. Little D would then be introduced to the dope game by a friend, and it was something new going around, so he was unfamiliar with it. But seeing the profit it made, he was all in. In high school, he started to make his own name. 1985, and after years of running the streets and wars with Mickey Moore and his crew to family, Felix Mitchell was targeted by the police and was arrested. By 1986, Felix Mitchell was killed in jail. Felix Mitchell's funeral was a sight to see. Thousands of people, luxury cars, and he was carried by a horse carriage, followed by 14 Rolls Royces, which took him to his hood and around Oakland one last time. This funeral had a lot of media coverage, and they sent him home the right way. Police was even in attendance, watching from a Ferrari that he owned that they confiscated.
Prison. They were looking for Mitchell's possible successor, and their somewhat ostensible vantage point was Mitchell's favorite red Ferrari.
After this, Little D would try to change a lot in the streets of Oakland, stop a lot of beef that was going on, and build relationships with hoods his hood didn't get along with normally. His OGs didn't like that, but it was the best thing for his area. This was extremely profitable for Little D and his business. He would become a millionaire by the age of 18. Little D wasn't as flashy as Felix Mitchell, but having so much money, he was young, he wanted cars and the jewelry, but this gained police attention. He started buying several luxury cars like Maseratis. Mind you, he was only a senior in high school. On the way, Little D would meet another Kingpin, Freeway Ricky Ross from LA. Freeway would become one of his new plugs. Freeway was older and couldn't believe someone that young could be running the whole enterprise by himself. 1988, Little D's 20th birthday party. He threw a massive birthday party with an estimated 3,000 people in attendance. MC Hammer performed, and it was a star-studded party with people like Too Short in attendance. As well, he even had relationships with people like Gary Payton and Mark Curry, known for the show Hanging with Mr. Cooper. But this would make matters worse. Police was on Little D's trail and were watching him for years, and even had his phones tapped. Police started putting surveillance on Little D and started to watch his every move. Police even hired a technician to put cameras by one of Little D's apartments to see who was coming in and who was coming out the apartments. On December 8th, 1988, Little D would be raided in his apartment. He had over 20 keys and $60,000 on him. Little D knew he had to stand tall and accept what came with the life, which was doing time or dying, which in his case was taking a long sentence. Police tried to make him snitch and give up bigger kingpins, but he refused. Little D took his case to trial and ended up being sentenced to 35 years at 21 years old. Time in jail, Little D would be sent to 14 different prisons, most not being in California. They wanted to separate him and his influence in California. Even with this, he would still hold down relationships with his family and his son, who was born after he was sentenced. In 2010, Little D would have a book come out called Wait. After doing a 25-year mark of his prison sentence, the president was considering clemency of many different kingpins. Many people would write letters and start a petition for Little D. He was later granted clemency. Getting out after all them years for Little D would feel like he was in a different world. a whole 28 years, it took a while for him to adapt, since he spent more time in his life in jail than out. Since being out, Little D has been trying to be a promoter, hosting events, and even giving back to his community by talking to the kids so they won't make the same mistakes that he did. He also has been trying to fetch a show about his life. Little D did over 2 decades in the pen, but he stood on what he believed and is considered a Bay Area street legend who is still respected and honored. But more than that, he's a father of 2, a grandpa, and a man who's changed for the better. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.